We're like 90% done with our usability documentation for our medical device, and now we just have to wrap up the remaining 10%, which are mostly just very bureaucratic. So this might also not be the most interesting video, but I guess this follows along this philosophy of let's show the most important stuff first, and then let's get the nitty-gritty details done later. So follow along if you kind of like actually want to get 100% of your usability documentation complete. That's what you need to do. Now, what did we do in the past? So we had this medical device, this depression app. We documented some user needs here. We documented 3 user needs. We documented some user tests, and we actually executed those user tests in a real, well, I guess real summative evaluation with real users, and we documented the success and failures. Best case, you only have success here. And then we also did something called a formative evaluation, where again, it's kind of like very freestyle, whatever you do. So check out that video. And we documented that too in a record here, which is just, again, very freestyle, where you just write down what you did. And formative evaluation, again, can happen anytime during your development. So it's kind of like very, very relaxed regarding all the methods and whatever you do with that. Now, the main thing which is missing is only actually creating clunky bureaucratic documentation. So some auditors might still require you to have something called a usability evaluation plan and a usability evaluation report, because the standard kind of mentions that. And you might have to kind of like discuss with your auditors whether you really need this. But in any case, I'll just show you how it looks. So these are rich text documents, and the good news is we have 3 templates for all of those. So you navigate away from the product section, you navigate to the eQMS section here in Formwork, go to templates, and then technical documentation. Now I'm going to search for usability, and you can see we have the usability evaluation plan and the report. I'll open each of them. And now the important thing is that we copy this as a record, and we copy it to our test depression app release records, this one, I think. And we'll just save it just to see that I don't screw things up too much. Okay, so in the test depression app, we have the records here, and okay, and here it is, cool. So we copied over an open regulatory template, which is pretty awesome. Let's do the same here with this report, test depression app, save it. And here we go. Awesome, cool. So now let's look at those templates, and I'll walk you through them super briefly. In the end, you'll have to fill them out, so good luck with that. But I'll just briefly show you kind of like what you need to keep in mind when filling them out. So the general thing is like auditors have this weird expectation that you kind of like sit down and plan your usability evaluation like before you do anything in your company, and most and in the reality this usually doesn't happen. But you need this usability evaluation plan where you generally like outline how you plan to test your usability. So all the stuff we actually did in prior videos with a summative and formative usability evaluation. So in this template, you kind of like have to assign some roles, like who is accountable for usability stuff at your company. And also maybe in your formative evaluation, you might have, like you might be asking a subject matter expert, like someone in the field who knows stuff, and you might kind of like list them here. And then there's just like a lot of boilerplate, like, okay, how do you do formative evaluation? How do you summative evaluation? Some auditors might actually want to see some sort of planning here where you have some specific dates when you do stuff. But you could also be a bit minimalistic and remove these first and kind of like see if your auditor actually really wants this, because the standard technically doesn't really tell you to do this. And then here you like add some more planning, and especially the planning again, like at the risk of repeating it, but 80% of your usability work is the summative evaluation. So most of this document is about the summative usability evaluation. So here you also have to describe the setting, like how many participants have you invited, like what are their profiles, where will you do the tests, and all that stuff, and when do you want to do it. So that's the summative evaluation, and that is the biggest part in this usability evaluation plan. And again, like you just need this because the standard mentions it, and then you can kind of like show this to auditors and say like, look, we planned our usability evaluation and we're such a great compliant startup. So in a perfect world, you would do this usability evaluation plan, you would document it and review it, and in Formwork, you can actually release stuff here in the record section too, which is cool. You can release it yourself or release it with a review with a colleague, depending on what you prefer to do. This is kind of like really up to you, but it's cool for auditors to kind of like see like, hey, cool, you released this usability evaluation plan before you actually did the user test. So that would be nice to actually have a plan before you do the tests. And again, the reality in 100+ companies, which I've seen is like stuff is really not like auditors imagine it to be, but like that would be a perfect world scenario. Now, continuing in the perfect world, you would now do your user tests and all the stuff we mentioned, like formative evaluation, summative evaluation. So you're kind of like close to release of your product. And then you fill out your usability evaluation report. So let's actually look at this template and see what needs to be added here. So here you essentially just summarize all the stuff which you did usability-wise. So if you remember, we documented this formative evaluation where we just had like a Google Meet call with someone and showed them a few screenshots. And here you document your learnings from that. So you just summarize it, and you can also link to it from here. And then here you document your summative evaluation, which again, summative evaluation, 80% of the work, most important. So of course, it takes up the biggest chunk of space here. So one question here is also like, and this also depends on your auditor, is like best case, you can just write a section here and write like, hey, all of this was documented in Formwork, we exported it separately and we upload it for you. If your auditors are very old school, you unfortunately have to like copy paste and fill this out separately. So that will kind of like depend on your auditors. And yeah, and that's, well, good luck with that. But you generally get the idea, right? So here we see what essentially we're looking at here is the user tests and the user test runs, which we documented earlier. So the overview of a test and pass-fail counts of tests is actually exactly the stuff which you have here, right? So user tests, you can see here, these are the user tests we define, and user test runs you have here with the pass-fail counts. And in Formwork, actually, there are many pretty cool ways of giving auditors access to that. So we have something called Audit Export, and I would really recommend the Generate HTML Archive Audit Export, because that exports exactly the same view we're looking at right now, which is pretty awesome. Like auditors open a HTML file on their computer, and they can actually look at exactly what we're looking at right now. They can click on that, but it's a local file. So that's really, really cool. And one auditor in particular, Berlin Cert, which is our cooperation partner for kind of like collaborating on these file formats, they have sent really positive feedback on that. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because the alternative is here exporting it as spreadsheets. So if you scroll down, you have the user test runs and the user test specification. So the two things we just looked at, you can download it as spreadsheets, but I can already tell you the data is complete and that's fine. And some auditors might be happy with that, but it just doesn't look as nice. And it's not as user-friendly to navigate as the fancy HTML exports. So best case, you can kind of like in one of the pre-meetings which you have with your auditor, usually you can discuss how you would like to hand in your usability documentation. Best case, HTML archive. So you don't have to like fill out this super clunky usability evaluation report. And by filling out, I mean copy pasting all the user tests and pass count, fail count. That would suck. But then generally speaking, regulatory compliance is often a lot of pain. So this you could get done in probably half an hour. So it's not the worst pain ever. And then you can add some other stuff like participant feedback, like if participants voice some specific opinions which you didn't document in the tests, you could kind of like add those here, some other findings. And most importantly, the conclusion at the bottom, you will need to conclude whether your software based on, or your product based on this usability engineering, so summative evaluation and formative evaluation, whether that is actually safe to bring to market. And best case, the answer is yes, but that's something you have to decide based on your test results. So that's the basic setup. And once you've got the usability evaluation report done, then you're literally done. So that's usability for medical devices. And the cool news, I think, really is we got this done in this newest course this year with Formwork. It's way less videos, we're way faster, and that's really, really awesome. So to recap, document your user needs, document your user tests, user test runs, summative evaluation, the most important part, 80% of the work. Then do at least one formative evaluation, which we looked at, and then fill out these documents and you're already done. in the record section. Now, if you kind of like think like, wait, this wasn't a lot of work, and that's actually very true, because if you actually read the standard, the 60366, again, buy it from the Estonian site, it's way cheaper, then you will notice it is a pretty short standard actually, which is actually really, really cool, because it's one of those areas in medical devices which is not completely bonkers over-regulated. So it still gives manufacturers a lot of freedom to do things which are very useful. And I'm a big fan of doing useful things, and usability evaluation is one of those rare instances where you as a manufacturer can actually do some pretty useful things. Cool. So that's that. Usability. I hope this video was super helpful, and this video course was helpful for you. Again, check out Formwork if you want to save a lot of time. It's our eQMS software. It has a free tier and it's super affordable. It's literally the cheapest software you can get on this planet right now for eQMS purposes. But also, if you have further questions, just leave a comment below. And usually I check the comments every few days and I answer personally, and I reply to your questions and give you the answer. Hopefully, well, we'll see. But that's it. So thanks for watching. Good luck with your usability.